I continue our business chats. We're doing this with thanks to Officeworks, with a guy who played for the Rabbitohs and also the Roosters, and is now head of one of the biggest pie companies in Australia.
He's a tremendous player.
Great bloke.
He's a good player.
Good-looking rooster and Rabbitoh. Sean Garlick joins us next on Sports Day.
You're listening to Sports Day. Have your say by dropping badge and sats a text 0477 736 736. That's 0477 736 736. This is Sports Day. We'll be right back.
Scott Sattler, Jason Matthews. Monday it is, and of course, Sats, you know we've been doing this series of interviews around sports people who have gone into business. Today, we are doing it again. Let's get to work. Officeworks, helping you make bigger things happen. This guy and I have got something in common, something very big in common. This guy played for South.
That's not that.
No, Roosters.
No. It's not that either.
Played for South again. He's also an actor.
Home and away.
Home and away. How good is that?
The only thing that you two have got in common that he makes pies, you eat them. That's the only thing you've got in common.
And quite a few too. Former police officer, but now one of the bosses of Garlo Pie, Sean Garlick. Welcome to Sports Day.
G'day, guys. How are we?
Good, thanks.
Good.
Thanks for coming on. Obviously, the transition from football player, actor, police officer, you've done a few things into the family business, which was, I believe, started in 1991 by your brother. You came on board in 2000. How did that transition happen from you playing footy to going into Garlo Pies?
Yeah, no, well, my brother was actually working in a local pie shop, just serving his apprenticeship as a pastry chef, and was sort of, he'd been there for about 10 years. When I finished playing football in 2000, I was looking for a bit of a hobby. I was going to stay involved in rugby league, and in fact was on board at the Rabbitohs when they got back into the competition. But in 2001, a little spot came available at Maroubra Junction on Anzac Parade, and I said to my brother, "What about if we'd had our own pie shop? Would you like to, run your own shop?" I was only going to be involved from a hobby point of view. He goes, "Look, I know how to make the product, but really haven't taken much notice how my boss runs the business." I said, "Look, how hard can it be?" So we just opened our first shop, but we had a really good kickstart in that we had a grand opening that was televised live on the Footy Show for some people.
That's right.
Remember, and we had the likes of Artie Beetson and Darryl Broman and Mark Carroll, Craig Salvatore, and Big MG Geyer have a pie eating competition. And I think, looking back, MG ate 15 pies that night and consumed 16 Crown Lagers along with it. And it was a perfect launch for the business.
Yeah, great stuff. Now, I've watched it really with interest, Shauna, because we've known each other for a lot of years through South Sydney connections and whatever it may be. Yeah. And going into a really aggressive market, the food market, did you try and take a different approach than others have taken in the past?
Well, look, our model's completely changed from where we started. Originally, it was going to be just a pie shop at Maroubra, and then based on the success we had with the first one, we opened a second one in Mascot 12 months later, then a third and a fourth and a fifth and a sixth. We opened 13 pie shops in the first 5 years, and things were going terrific. And then, what we found, though, was it became more and more difficult to find good spots, especially in Sydney with the highest rents in the world, wages being as high as they were, and we decided that we'd start to go into the wholesale market and started supplying pubs and clubs and schools and cafes and all that sort of thing. And for the first couple of years, I was still working at the Rabbitohs, and my brother was sort of trying to run the business on his own, make the pies, and I was employing staff on night time and all that, and just became too much. And so I threw the football manager's role in at the Rabbitohs and went over and said, "Look, now we're going to have to make this business afford me," because I wasn't really drawing much of a wage. And Coles came along. I suppose the biggest kick we got was when Coles came along in 2009. Literally knocked on our door and said, "Would you like to supply Coles?" And I immediately thought, "Oh, look, I've heard what you guys do to small businesses. No thanks." And they persevered, and they said, "Look, what are your worries?" And I said, "Oh, worries that you're going to drag us out on payment terms. You'll sell our product for $1 and ruin our brand. You'll build us up and then cut us off at the knees." And they said, no, look, help us, let us work with you on all of this. And so we started slowly, and it was the best thing we ever did. And we started to realise that the pie shops, every time you open a shop, you open a new set of costs. Whereas when you just concentrate on the manufacture, let somebody else sell them, you really get economies of scale. The more you make, the cheaper you make them for. bigger the profit margin. And so we just grew from there. And eventually, we've now closed all of our stores. The only store that we have is the one that's attached to our production facility head office at Kingsgrove in Sydney, and much easier model to manage.
Oh, that's depressing, because I remember distinctly 1, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning buying an armful of chicken pies from the Coogee one. I think Johnny Cartwright was with me, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, it was right opposite the Coogee Bay Hotel.
Too.
It was the famous campground for Origin, of course.
Yeah, it was too. Yeah.
Many events and incidents and accidents happened around Coogee in those days, and we were the beneficiary of people falling out of the Coogee Bay Hotel straight into the pie shop at all hours. It was 24/7. In fact, we had 3 24/7 stores at one stage: one at Mascot, one at Coogee, and one at great old King's Cross. Weren't they good days?
Oh, hey, Sean, disciplines from rugby league and sport. We learn a lot of disciplines. One of them isn't looking at numbers and figures. It's only the figures that's on your contract. But what disciplines have you learnt from sport and then transferring that into business?
Look, I suppose the most disappointing thing for me, and this is a real reality check for anyone that comes out of rugby league, and you sort of just forget this because you just move into rugby league from school, and you think that's in rugby league you're surrounded by high performers and people that really want to they want to strive to achieve. Whereas, no disrespect to general workforce, but most people want to come to work, do their job, go home, not get a call on the weekend, not get disrupted, and happy to do that. The thing that I had to do was I had to lower my expectations of people generally, in the general workforce. People that are in your accounts, people that are on just answering your phone, taking orders, people that are on your forklift, people that are packing pies, stacking pies. They're not high performers. They're not, and no disrespect. They want to come to work, do a job, fair day's work for a fair day's pay, and happy. And what I used to do early on was I expected too much for the amount I was paying people, basically. And I needed to lower my expectations and realise that I'm in a different industry now. I mean, the thing that a first-grade coach has, he has one halfback, then a halfback behind him, and a halfback behind him, and a halfback behind him, and it goes right down through the junior ranks, and everyone that's busting their neck to get a go. Mm. Well, in the general workforce, that's not the case, and you get rid of somebody at your peril, because then you've got to recruit somebody, you've got to induct them, you've got to train them, and then they might not work out. And I found very early on, my expectations were too high, and I just turned too many people over. And you can't grow a business, you can't have a successful business when you keep doing that.
Yeah, really good insight to how your mind has ticked and how you've actually learnt through our business. How has, over the last 12 months, COVID kicked in about this time last year? How has business been through COVID, and have you been able to keep all your staff and the business going?
Look, it was a real two-stage effect for us. In April last year, when sort of the throes of COVID really became relevant and people started to panic a little, we lost all of we still supply to a lot of pubs and clubs and schools and cafes, sports grounds, lunch trucks, all of that sort of thing. Well, they fell off a cliff, as we all know. Airline lounges all fell off a cliff, and we thought Armageddon was on the approach. We really didn't know where the business was going to go, how many staff were going to have to cut. April was a horrible month for us, worst in years. And then all of a sudden we got the panic buying in supermarkets, and we're in every Coles in New South Wales and Queensland, and all of a sudden sales started going through the roof. So much so they had to prioritise deliveries, and pies at first weren't on their priority list.
What?
And so we copped a bit of a whack early on until they got their logistics right and all of that, and then they realised, hang on, pies are what people were. There wasn't a pie left on the shelf.
Absolutely.
Pies are what people want to throw in their fridge and their freezer in these uncertain times. And we've seen supermarkets just go through the roof. So we're now in Woolworths as well. Not in Queensland, unfortunately, just yet, but we're in the Woolworths around New South Wales. And we've been very lucky that they've traded beyond all expectations. I think both of those would agree that can this be sustainable? Can the sales remain where they are and where they were for last year? But I suppose less people are going out, not as many people are going to restaurants, and things have sort of changed, and people have saved a bit of money by eating more at home and buying more from the supermarket.
That's true.
I hope it remains the way it is.
Yeah, I lived on I don't know about you, Sats and Sean, but I lived on a steady diet of pies, Chico rolls and toilet paper. during COVID, so that got me through.
That still continued. Still continued.
Well, we're still in COVID, mate. Come on.
Yeah.
Yeah, correct. Yeah,
Outside
that's
of-
right. Yeah,
outside
well,
of-
just as well you did. Just as
Outside
well
of-
you had that toilet paper to finish it up. Yeah.
Outside of the good old meat pie, Garlo, what's the favourite pie?
Well, good point. I mean, and so we do about 30 different flavours, different sizes, family pies, little party pies, and all that. But isn't it amazing that we do chicken pies, we do lamb pies, we do seafood pies, the good old fashioned meat plain mince pie. Well, we sell as many of them as all the pies put together, and the sausage roll, of course. You can't go past the sausage roll. But yeah, you've got to be creating new flavours and new recipes to keep yourself interesting and keep the brand relevant. But it's amazing how people just go for what they've always got at school, what they grew up with at the football, and it's that plain meat pie that keeps on keeping on.
Have you ever had a sausage roll, Sean? I mean, I've tried to educate Sats and Badge about these sausage rolls, but they're a gift from God, these things. It's a plain long roll, shoved with a sausage roll in it, heaps of sauce, and of course you've got to have a chalky milk with it. They're legendary.
Oh, yeah. They are, and especially for a man on a budget. They're really filling. You put them in a big roll, a big sausage roll. It keeps you going, and especially when you top it off with the chocolate milk. Oh, you're full for half the day.
I have one of those for breakfast that gets me through to morning tea. Anyway. Hey, listen, Sean Garlick, we do appreciate your time.